They say first impressions last a lifetime. Maya Hart never expected the world to see her as anything more than a quiet shadow. Cold open. Hook. Glass shards rained down around her as the helicopter's rotor blades spun out of control. Maya's breath caught in her throat as she dove behind a sand-colored crate. Rifle at the ready. She'd been underestimated her entire life. Drop A, if you've ever been underestimated. Her slender frame pressed flush against the rough steel. Every heartbeat thundered in her ears. The men in the landing zone swore they'd put her in her place when she arrived, but no one told them she could outshoot them with her eyes closed. Backstory thread. Maya's fingers brushed the faded tattoo on her wrist. 3 tally marks inked over her mother's name. She had learned precision from her father, a legendary sniper whose rifle songs echoed across deserts. From her mother, an elite combat medic, she learned the art of healing bodies shattered by war, but she carried her expertise hidden beneath. Practice smiles and steady hands as a tech specialist at Titan Response, a private security outfit famed for training the toughest operators. Every morning, she calibrated drones, cleaned weapons, and patched dummy wounds in the compounds. Simulated triage ward. She moved with silent efficiency, her dark ponytail swinging like a pendulum marking every calculated step. She'd watch the men around her, hotshot recruits flexing muscles, joking about women in combat. She never corrected them, letting their arrogance build like dry tinder, inciting incident. When the alarms blared that midday explosions rocking the nearby village, they called for volunteers. Maya felt the tremor in her chest. The village was under siege by insurgents hiding among civilians. The commander barked orders, "No techs in the field, stay here." As the team loaded into Humvees, Maya's pulse quickened. The convoy lurched forward. She slung her rifle, an old gift from her father, over her shoulder. She knew every bolt, every scope adjustment from memory. She raised her chin and stepped forward. "I'm going," she said, a lopsided smirk from Staff Sergeant Briggs. "You, in the field? Copy that, techie." Her calm reply, "Copy that." Crisis and reveal. Dust devils whipped through the cratered road as bullets ricocheted off metal. The insurgents were trained ambush set at the village edge. Maya dropped to one knee, aligning her scope. She exhaled, sighting their position 20. Clicks out, bam! Her first shot cracked like thunder, settling the insurgent's rifle with surgical precision. One by one, her rounds found hostile combatants hidden behind rubble. The men on her left gaped. They had no idea she carried the legacy of a sniper in her blood. She moved forward, calibrating her exoskeleton brace, diving behind cover as grenades pounded the ground. Briggs shouted, "Who taught you to shoot like that?" She paused, cold, eyes scanning for more targets. "My father." 2 insurgents charged an ambulance. Maya sprinted across open ground, fired 3 rapid shots, disarming the attackers. She vaulted onto the ambulance's bumper and jammed her rifle butt into one insurgent's shoulder, tearing the weapon free. The assailant crumpled. The team froze, mouths open as she dragged a dust-streaked medic to the vehicle side, ripping her kit open to staunch a wounded civilian's bleeding leg. Every movement fluid, practiced, lethal. Drop A if you felt that tension, resolution and reflection. Sirens wailed in the distance as reinforcements arrived. Maya lowered her rifle, heart hammering, mud caking her tactical gloves. The team's leader approached, jaw clenched, eyes wide. He saluted her. "Outstanding work, Specialist Hart." She simply nodded, wiping sweat and blood from her brow. Later, in the medbay, Maya traced her father's old insignia on her scope. She wondered if he'd be proud, if her mother would see the same fierce dedication glinting behind her steady gaze. A question lingered. Could she ever fit into a world that never saw her coming? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow I have a special story for you. Glass still glimmered in Maya's hair when she stepped off the transport. The compound's floodlights painted long shadows across the landing zone. Her boots crunched on shattered concrete, but her spine stayed straight. Not one word was spoken. As the other operators climbed down after her, eyes darting from her rifle to the battered medkit swinging at her side, Briggs caught up. His voice rasped, lower now, like the adrenaline had been bled dry. "You saved Jackson, and the civvies. They're saying you pulled the evac under heavy fire. That true?" Maya shrugged, her gaze distant, tracking the perimeter fence's motion. Detectors flickering green. "I did what I was trained to do." They laughed at her Purple Heart until she proved it was real in combat. She felt the bruise on her shoulder where the rifle butt had slammed back with every recoil. She felt her mother's steady hands guiding her through battlefield sutures. When she was barely 12, she felt her father's calloused grip covering hers as she learned to breathe out her heartbeat before the shot. Inside the debrief room, the commander paced like a caged wolf. Colonel Darrow had ice for eyes. "I want a full report, Hart. You're a tech. You disobeyed direct orders." Maya remained standing while the men collapsed into chairs. She spoke evenly. "The evac was bottlenecked. Our shooters were pinned down by overlapping fire. There was no time to call in drones. I engaged." Darrow slammed his fist on the metal table. "You engaged on your own initiative." Briggs interjected, surprising even himself. "Sir, she dropped 5 tangos. Saved the medic crew." If she hadn't, Darrow cut him off with a glare. "This is not your report, Briggs. Out." The doors slammed shut, leaving Maya alone with the colonel's heavy breathing. She could smell stale coffee and gun oil on his jacket. "You know what happens when you break chain of command, Hart?" She met his stare with quiet steel. "Yes, sir." He leaned forward. "I read your file. Civilian training scores buried under generic logistics duties. You're a ghost. And now this? You want to be one of them? Frontline?" Maya's voice dropped, her shoulders relaxing as if exhaling a secret. "No, sir. I want to be where I'm needed." Darrow's jaw tightened. For a heartbeat, Maya thought he might throw her out on her ass. Then, without warning, he reached into his pocket and dropped her father's old insignia on the table. The metal gleamed under the fluorescence. "I served with him," Darrow said roughly. "Desert Storms. He was good." "You have his eyes." She swallowed the lump in her throat. "He always spoke highly of you. Don't flatter me." Darrow's expression softened by a degree. "I'm assigning you to Shadow Cell. Provisional. You'll answer directly to me. Don't make me regret it." She nodded once. No smile, just the steady beat of her pulse against the scar on her wrist. "Get cleaned up." Shadow Cell deploys at 0500 drop A. If you've ever been thrown in the deep end, Maya's bunk was a metal cot, wedged between 2 crates in the Shadow Cell's barracks. The other operators, mostly men, broad-shouldered, tattoos trailing down forearms, watched her with half-lidded eyes and low chuckles. They weren't mocking, not exactly. More like testing the weight of a new weapon. She stripped off her vest, scrubbing blood flecks from the fabric. Her fingers traced the worn edges of her father's insignia, now pinned to her chest rig. She remembered his steady breathing behind her as they tracked antelope across high plains. 1 shot, 1 kill, then laughter and a hug she still felt in. The ghost of her bones. The next morning, dawn found them rumbling toward a derelict airstrip. Intel had flagged a rogue paramilitary group siphoning weapons caches. The cell's task: intercept and extract a hostage and embedded journalist who'd stumbled too close to a shipment of high-value munitions. The chopper blades thumped overhead as they fast-roped into tall grass. Maya's boots sank into damp soil. She adjusted her headset. Briggs' voice crackled in her ear. "You good?" "Eyes forward," she murmured. Her scope flicked to thermal. Heat signatures bloomed like ghostly fires. 7 hostiles, 3 roaming perimeter, 4 clustered near a gutted hangar. Briggs hissed, Hostage should be inside the hangar, quiet and clean. Maya moved ahead, ghosting from tree to tree. Her exobrace absorbed every impact as she dropped to prone, crawled through weeds, then rose like a phantom. Her heartbeat slowed. 1, 2, 3. She squeezed the trigger silencer, hissing. A perimeter guard folded into the grass. Another shot-second target crumpled. She signaled Briggs. 2 down. He gave a low whistle. Copy, Purple Heart. She hated the nickname. But it stuck now, proof that her medal wasn't a fluke, that her skills didn't come from luck, but from a lifetime of unseen training. The team breached the hangar in tandem. Maya swept left, boots sliding through broken glass. She spotted the hostage, a young woman bound and gagged, eyes wide with terror. Maya's rifle snapped up. 2 insurgents arguing over a crate didn't even see her coming. 2 shots, perfect. Double tap. She slung the rifle, sprinted for the hostage, knife out, cutting zip ties as the woman sobbed into her shoulder. She spoke calm, steady words. You're safe. Follow my lead. Gunfire erupted outside, Briggs shouting. Maya pushed the journalist toward cover, spun on her heel, and fired through the hangar's shattered windows. Her rounds pinned 3 more insurgents behind a rusted fuel truck. Briggs' voice barked. Incoming pickup truck, 12 o'clock. Maya's mind raced. She ducked behind a forklift, reloaded, and sighted the truck barreling down the airstrip. Tires squealed, men with AKs leaning out windows. She flicked her scope to adjust for distance and wind shear. 1 deep breath. Her father's voice whispered, "Don't just shoot the man. Shoot the intention." She aimed for the driver's shoulder 1 round. The man jerked, lost control. The truck veered, slammed into a concrete barrier, flames licking its undercarriage. A heartbeat of silence. Then the fuel truck behind the hangar exploded, shockwave knocking Maya flat. She felt the heat scald her arms. The hostage screamed. Metal rained from above. Maya's vision blurred. She forced herself to stand, dragged the woman upright, and stumbled through the haze. Outside, Briggs' hand clamped her shoulder. You just saved our asses again. Twice in 2 days. Maya only nodded, chest heaving. Her eyes flicked to the horizon where the rising sun burned red. Droppa, if you felt that rush. Back at the compound, the praise came slow and grudging. The men who once joked about her medal now offered nods, claps on the shoulder, coffee left at her bunk. But trust in this world was transactional. Respect even more so. She sat alone that night, field stripping her rifle, her thoughts drifting to her mother's last letter. A battlefield doesn't care who you are. Make it care. Maya stared at the Purple Heart pinned to her gear. She wondered, how many battles would it take before they truly saw her? A knock at her door. Briggs again, looking haggard but grinning. Shadow cells moving to the border tomorrow. Word is, there's chatter of a convoy, dirty weapons, chemical stuff. Command wants you on Overwatch. She tucked the insignia into her pocket, eyes locked on his. Then we're ready. A cold wind swept through the barracks as she stood, pulling her jacket tight. In her mind, her father's rifle cracked again and again, echoes of a legacy. No one could ever laugh it again. A storm was coming. She could feel it in her bones. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. Dawn clawed at the sky in bruised streaks of violet and gray as Maya checked her loadout for the 3rd time. Her breath clouded in the chill, each exhale steady, as if the cold might seep into her bones if she let it. They'd moved out under the cover of a moonless night, convoy weaving through switchback roads that snaked across the border region scrublands. Inside the armored carrier, the operator sat shoulder to shoulder, gear rattling, rifles propped against dented walls, the diesel growl of the engine vibrating through their boots. Briggs sat across from her, eyes half closed. Intel says the convoy's loaded with gas canisters. Nasty stuff. Black market buyers waiting in the next village. Maya pulled a worn claw from her pocket, wiping down her scope. Which means they'll be desperate. He cracked an eyelid. You ever run chemical intercept? Once, she said softly. I was 12. Dad and I found a depot in the desert. Improvised hazmat suits. Shot out the tires before the cargo could cross. Briggs snorted. And I thought my old man was hardcore. She didn't answer. Her mind drifted to the deserts. Scorched wind, her father's voice counting seconds between shots. Drop a, if your family ever shaped you in ways you didn't expect. The convoy crested a rise, tires crunching gravel. Through the narrow slit in the armor plating, Maya saw the valley spread below dusty tracks lit by the pink smear of dawn, a column of trucks creeping along like beetles. Shadow Cell disembarked in a single fluid motion. Boots hit dirt. Orders barked low. Maya slipped into the overwatch position on a rocky outcrop, brace humming quietly as it adjusted to the incline. Her breath cinched with her heartbeat. In, out. The scope's crosshairs quivered over the lead truck's grill. She counted 5 vehicles. 2 pickups flanked by armed outriders on dirt bikes. Briggs' voice crackled in her ear. Ready on breach. Copy. A distant pop flashbangs tossed by the breach team. Chaos unfurled like a gas flare. Insurgents leapt from the trucks, weapons barking. Maya fired once an outrider slumped, dirt bike skidding sideways. Another shot clipped the bat tire of the second bike, sending it flipping end over end. Below, Briggs and 2 others moved in a fluid arc, pinning the hostiles behind the trucks. Maya shifted position, lining up shots with a detached calm that felt less like adrenaline and more like inevitability. One target took cover behind a canister crate, muzzle flashes throbbing. She squeezed. The shot passed through a gap in the crate, found its mark. The man dropped. Keep pressure, Briggs yelled. We can't let them blow the cargo. Maya felt it before she saw it, the glint of a detonator clutched by a retreating insurgent. Her pupils contracted. 1 second. 2. The man's thumb twitched toward the trigger. Her father's whisper. Don't shoot the man. Shoot the moment. She adjusted 2 clicks, fired. The round smashed the detonator in his hand. Sparks, no ignition. The man's scream was lost in the roar of suppressed gunfire. The team surged forward, wresting control of the trucks. Maya's position gave her a clear view as they bound the prisoners, zip ties snapping around calloused wrists. She counted. Bodies scanned for movement, eyes flicking across every shadow. Drop a, if you love seeing skill silenced out. Briggs' voice again, calmer now. Overwatch, we're clear. Move down. She slung her rifle, boots crunching over loose shale. Dust rose in a thin haze as she descended. At the convoy center, a battered storage truck idled, its doors flung wide. Inside, stacked canisters leaked a chemical stench that caught in the back of her throat. A young operator in a gas mask pulled back, gagging. Some of these seals are broken. Maya scanned the cargo. Her fingers danced over one canister's rim frosted with residue. A bad sign. Get the containment tarp. We need to neutralize the leaks, or this valley's wildlife won't last a week. Briggs watched her work tape cinching. Valves tightened. A quick calculation of air currents in the shallow gorge. She felt him studying her, as if only now grasping that the quiet tech specialist had the instincts of a field scientist and the aim of a seasoned hunter. By dusk, the convoy was secured, prisoners shipped to an off-grid black site. The chemical payload neutralized for transport to a disposal unit. They rode back to base in silence, eyes heavy, the weight of what-ifs pressing on every shoulder. That night, Maya found a corner in the old rec hall, rifle laid across her knees. She stripped it down to the firing pin, cloth sliding over metal. Her mother's old field medkit lay open beside her, bandages, syringes, trauma shears tools she'd memorized long before she could ride a bike. She replayed the day. The shot through the detonator, the outriders on the bikes, the chemical seals. Small victories that kept the line from breaking. She wondered if they'd see her now, if the men would stop laughing, or if every mission would require another drop of blood before they did. Outside, a desert wind keened against the corrugated tin. The sound reminded her of her father's voice over the radio. Don't flinch. Don't explain. Just prove it. Briggs stepped into the hall, a tin mug steaming in his hand. He set it down next to her, eyes flicking from the rifle to the old medkit. Command's impressed, he said. Word is they want you on the recon team next op. Deep incursion. Dangerous as hell. She looked up at him, eyes shadowed but unflinching. I'll go, he nodded. Didn't think you'd say no. As he walked out, Maya traced the Purple Heart's outline where it glowed faintly in her kit. They'd laughed once. She could feel the laughter dying. Replaced by a wary respect that tasted like metal and ashdot, she exhaled slow, shoulders squaring. The next test would come soon. It always did. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. The user asked to continue, so here is part 5, to follow the same immersive, tense, cinematic style. I'll craft it as a separate document with the required word count and guidelines. Cold open hook. A single bullet gouged the concrete ceiling, showering Maya in dust and sparks as she pressed her back against the tunnel wall. Lungs screaming for air. Maya's world narrowed to the hiss of her breathing, the metallic taste of adrenaline, and the rogue commander charging her with a serrated blade. Drapa, if you've ever stared down impossible odds. Backstory thread. She remembered her mother's soft voice in field hospitals, whispering, "Stay calm, heart strong," as she stitched shrapnel wounds under strobe lights. She remembered her father's steady hand guiding hers on the rifle stock at dawn, counting down to each perfect shot. Every lesson they taught precision, patience, and compassion had been honed in this crucible of war. The skins of her knuckles bore the faded scars of childhood drills, snap-cap drills in the desert plains. Her heart, once guarded behind polite smiles, now hammered with every memory of nights spent learning to blend into shadows. But tonight, in this labyrinth of steel pipelines and rusting conduits beneath enemy territory, none of that mattered. Unless she proved her legacy lived in her hands. Inciting incident. 2 hours ago. Shadow cell deployed from 30,000 feet. The halo jump had been flawless. Adrenaline crackling in her veins, the shock of cold air as she punched her chute. Below, a roofless barn marked the drop zone. Purple tracer rounds arced overhead as she and Briggs broke into a sprint, slipping. Into the mined forest. Warning beeps from the brace signaled proximity to pressure plates buried beneath leaf litter. Maya lifted her foot an inch at a time, diffusing one sensor with surgical wire, her father's mantra echoing in her mind. Every step matters. Briggs whispered. This place reeks of ambush. She nodded, heart steady. Keep to my lead. They cleared the last minefield at the forest edge and found the convoy intact, 2 armored transports, guarded by 4 mercenaries. Inside one was the civilian hostage, an aid worker named Alana Cruz. Beaten but alive. Drapa, if you live for the tension. Crisis and reveal. They breached the transport with synchronized precision. Briggs smashed the window. Maya's knife cut. Elena free. But the moment they stepped outside, tracer fire erupted from every direction. A trusted operator, Corporal Ann, raised his rifle at them. Shock froze Maya's breath. Stand down. Ann barked. Maya's pulse spiked. Corporal, what? Anne's flicked to Briggs, then to Maya's insignia. Orders changed. Extraction scrubbed. He squeezed the trigger. Maya. Dove, taking a round in her thigh. Pain lanced through her leg, but she fired back, knocking Anne off balance. Briggs laid suppressive fire, dragging Elena behind a dead transport. Maya pressed her hand to the wound, ripping gauze from her pack. Her mother's face flickered in her memory. She tore into the flesh, stifling a scream as she applied pressure. And a quick clotting agent. Briggs yelled, "We need to move." Ignoring her throbbing leg, Maya ripped the tag off her vest. "Stay close," she shouted through gritted teeth. They sprinted deeper into the compound, each echoing shot a drumbeat of survival. Maya's brace malfunctioned, sparks dancing as an insurgent sniper took aim at her shoulder. Cold logic took over. She aimed, exhaled, and fired a perfect shot, deflecting the bullet with the brace's frame and lodging the sniper's head in the barrel breech. The echoing report snapped her back. She swallowed bile and kept running. Resolution and reflection. In the underground server vault, steel walls hummed with power. Maya planted custom charges on the mainframe, her fingers steady despite the pain. She thought of her father's pride, of her mother's unwavering belief. This was more than sabotage. It was her vindication. Briggs collapsed beside her, blood seeping from a shoulder wound. Elena knelt to help, tears streaking her dusty face. Maya pressed a bandage into place with one hand and set the last explosive with the other. She triggered the countdown. 10 seconds. She grabbed Briggs. They limped into the maintenance tunnel as the world behind them detonated in a roar of collapsing metal. Resolution and cliffhanger, emerging into moonlit ruins. Maya aimed her radio at overhead. She signaled the evac drone, its blades slicing the night sky. Relief flooded her chest. Then the chatter crackled, reinforcements closing fast. The hum of engines grew, a convoy of enemy vehicles cutting them off. Briggs looked at her, eyes wide with shock and admiration. Maya shouldered her rifle, breath steady despite the blur of pain. They'll never laugh again. The tunnel mouth framed. Approaching headlights. Maya's fingers tightened on the trigger. End of final part, part 5. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. A blood-red flare illuminated Maya's quivering shadow as she lay flat in the crater's muddy bottom. Heart hammering, rifle clutched in white-knuckled hands. Drop a if you've ever fought under a sky lit by fire. Backstory thread. She felt the scar across her rib where the mortar round struck last mission, an unhealed reminder that her body was a map of every battle. Her father's whispered lesson echoed in her ear. Survive to serve. Her mother's mantra pulsed behind each heartbeat. Compassion anchors you in chaos. She pressed the flare's switch off, plunging into darkness. Every sense heightened. The metallic tang of blood, the stomping echo of enemy boots on warped steel, the distant roar of collapsing structures, inciting incident. 2 hours earlier, Shadow Cell breached the insurgent stronghold's outer walls. In a hail of suppressive fire, Maya had led the breach team through a blistering crossfire, adrenaline burning at every vein. Their objective: secure the high-value intelligence vault and locate the commander's personal files, proof of the network's clandestine ties to global arms dealers. Inside the main communications bunker, the air was thick with ozone and dread. Incendiary rounds had carved jagged patterns in the concrete ceiling. Maya's boots snapped over debris as she swept the room, scanning for survivors. She found only bodies and a locked safe banked in scorched wiring. She knelt, rifle across her lap, tools humming as she hacked the lock through her brace's integrated interface. Seconds dripped like blood. Her father's steady voice. One shot, one chance. The safe clicked, revealing encrypted drives, a red envelope stamped eyes only, and a dossier with her name scrawled across the top. Her breath stilled. Drop a if you've ever faced a truth that cut deeper than any bullet. Crisis and reveal. They heard it then. The commander's voice over the intercom, a distorted growl that made every hair on her arms rise. Enjoyed the light show, Specialist Hart? Your friends are hardly defenseless. The bunker doors slammed shut, emergency lockdown. Maya's team braced behind overturned tables, rifles trained on the steel doors. She held the dossier, pulse slicing through her chest like ice. The intercom spat fragments of static. Tell me, Maya, did your parents teach you loyalty? Or did they teach you betrayal? Her hands shook. The envelope burned through her gloves. She ripped it open. Photographs of her mother treating wounded insurgents, her father's unit standing over civilian bodies. Classified operations buried in propaganda. They'd used her family's legacy to shield their crimes. Her vision tunneled. She slammed the dossier aside and dropped into a firing stance. "Sell, stack up." Corporal Reyes, his voice tense, whispered, "Madam, they've reinforced the exit sandbags, motion sensors." Maya's jaw clenched. Her hidden mastery flared combat medic instincts, merging with sniper instincts. She snapped off 2 rounds, one through the reinforced glass viewport, another taking out the control panel. Sparks showered the room as the doors hissed open. They charged into a preset kill zone. Maya activated her exo-brace's shielding burst, an armored flare that sent enemies sprawling. She dove into the firefight, her rifle singing death and salvation in the same breath. Every shot precise, every move fluid. Mercy in her trigger finger and justice in her aim. Resolution and reflection. They made it to the vault's antechamber. The drive clutched in Maya's hand. The world beyond the doors was a symphony of destruction, charred walls, broken crates, and bodies strewn like driftwood. Briggs patted her shoulder, eyes wide. "You saved us all again." She pressed the envelope, shredded remnants into her palm, tasting bile. "No," she whispered. "I saved myself." The drive's data would expose the network's deepest lies, her parents' sacrifices twisted into tools of terror. She exhaled, pain flaring through her leg. Her father's voice steadied her. "True precision comes from the heart." Maya raised the drive above the rubble-strewn ground, the red sun of late afternoon catching its edge. "You ready?" Briggs asked. She nodded, eyes blazing. "Let's end this." As they emerged from the bunker, a squadron of enemy reinforcements poured into the courtyard. Maya planted the drive into her radio handset, sending a pulse that triggered the choppers. Auto guidance for extraction. The courtyard erupted in chaos. Every barrel turned toward her. She found cover behind a half-collapsed wall, gear smoking. The brace hummed as it overloaded, sparking. A sniper's whistle cut through the roar. Shot aimed at her heart. Time slowed. Dust motes drifted. Her pulse thundered. Maya squeezed the trigger reflex, muscle memory. Destiny. The world shattered into light. Cliffhanger. She opened her eyes to a sky aflame with tracer rounds. Her body trembled, but her spirit roared. Had she survived? Had she proved her Purple Heart beyond doubt? The answer lay in the bullet hole blooming in her chest. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. Engine roars and boot stomps echoed down the tunnel as Maya crouched by Briggs' side, one knee grinding into broken concrete, her rifle sighted on the approaching convoy. Drop a if you've ever felt the weight of everything you stand for pressed against your back. Backstory thread. Her mother's words flared behind her eyes. Compassion is your shield. Her father's ghost reminded her. Precision is your spear. But here, under the raw churn of exhaust fumes and blood seeping through her thigh wrap, compassion and precision became survival. Briggs whispered, "We're boxed in." Maya heard the catch in his breath, every cough a reminder of the bullet grazing his lung. She scanned the tunnel walls, rusted pipes, a cracked overhead maintenance hatch. She forced herself to ignore the pounding in her skull. The echoes of every time she'd been told she was just a tech, a ghost, a lie-wearing boots. Inciting incident. "Help me up," she grunted. Briggs grabbed her forearm, grimacing at the fresh blood soaking her tactical sleeve. Maya holstered her rifle, yanked a mag flare from her vest, and jammed it into the corroded pipe overhead. A bright white flame spat and sizzled. Sparks rained down, mixing with dust as the tunnel ceiling began to crumble. "Collapse the mouth. Funnel them through," she said. Her eyes glowed with something close to fury, or maybe freedom. Briggs nodded, reloading his sidearm with trembling fingers. Elena, the aid worker they'd rescued, stood behind them, wide-eyed but silent. She clutched a field radio like a lifeline. Crisis and reveal. Tires squealed. Engines revved. Shadows appeared in the mouth of the tunnel mercenaries, with high-beam flashlights sweeping the darkness. They were armored, masked. Overconfident. Maya drew her father's old sniper rifle from its sheath-sleek carbon fiber, now battered and scored from 100 field repairs. She steadied her elbows on a toppled crate. Her heartbeat slowed. In the crosshairs, the lead driver, scanning the shadows. She remembered every insult, every doubt, every mocking laugh about a Purple Heart pinned on the wrong chest. She squeezed. The trigger, glass exploded. The driver slumped onto the wheel, the vehicle fishtailing and slamming into the wall. Sparks burst like fireworks, blocking the others from charging in. Briggs barked orders. Maya didn't hear them. Her world narrowed to breath and recoil, brass shells pinging onto concrete. Drop a if you've ever dreamed of silencing doubt with action. One by one, the enemy closed in. Bullets slammed into the crate, shielding Maya's brace. She shifted, flinched as another round clipped her shoulder. She fired again. This time, the shot split an enemy's rifle barrel. A second round dropped the gunman. She could feel her father's grin in the echo of every shot. One more, she thought, dragging. The bolt back. A voice cut through the noise. Elena's panicked. "Drones overhead." "Evac window closing." Maya reloaded. "Briggs, can you move?" He grunted, rising on shaky legs. "You lead." She slung the rifle, grabbed Briggs by the vest strap, and shoved Elena ahead into a side shaft. The tunnel behind them cracked flames, and concrete raining down as the flare's heat chewed through ancient welds. They emerged into an open shaft, under a half-collapsed bridge. Overhead, the evac drone's spotlight flicked like a lighthouse beam. Resolution and reflection. Maya tapped her headset. "Titan, we're clear. 3 souls for lift." The drone's winch lowered, cable swaying in the smoky updraft. Maya hooked. Elena first, then Briggs. Last, she latched herself on, gritting her teeth as her wounded leg screamed protest. As they rose, the chaos below receded. The enemy convoy battered the tunnel walls and Vane, trapped by the collapse, outmaneuvered. By the ghost they underestimated. Above the valley, the drone tilted toward the horizon. The desert unfurled below. Blood, fire, and proof. Briggs' voice croaked through the coms. "They'll never question you again, Purple Heart." Maya clenched her fist around her father's insignia, now warm from her chest. "They won't have to." Far below, the last echoes of the firefight faded into silence. She felt her mother's voice in the wind. "Stay calm. Heart strong." The drone lifted them toward the dawn. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The desert wind howled through the fractured evac hatch as Maya braced herself, knees locked against the drone's battered deck. The earth below streaking by in a smear of fire and shadows. Drop up if you've ever held on when the ground fell away. Backstory thread. She felt every torn ligament, every bone bruised beneath the bandages. Each throb in her thigh was a whisper of her mother's steady sutures and old war tents. Each breath a memory of her father's hand guiding hers through the first hairline shot at dusk. They never told her that the real wound would be the silence. When the dust settled, they never warned her how the world would keep asking, "Prove it again." Inciting incident. The drone touched down on a black site, outpost just across the border. Titan Response's commander, Colonel Darrow, met her at the hatch, face lit by the cold dawn. "You did it," he rasped, voice torn by smoke and disbelief. "Network is crumbling. Command wants you to debrief." Maya didn't move. She could taste the lie in his voice like grit in her teeth. "Debrief what?" she asked. She still clutched the encrypted drive that she'd ripped from the commanders. Bunker proof that the traitors she hunted weren't just out there, but among her own. Everything you know. Darrow's gaze flicked to Briggs, unconscious on a stretcher, Elena tending him with trembling hands. "Hand it over." Maya stared at him. The desert wind lashed her ponytail against her throat. Her father's voice came back. "Don't trust the man who profits from your silence." She turned, started limping toward the med tent. Darrow grabbed her arm. "I said," she snapped her wrist free, her tone like a blade. "No, when this is over, the truth comes with me." Crisis and reveal. Night fell again. Briggs woke long enough to give her a thin smile, his trust now etched in every bruised rib. Elena typed feverishly beside him, decrypting the final layers of the drive. On the screen, wire transfers, Black Ops kill lists, files with Darrow's names stamped across supply routes that never made sense. "Command's been dirty since the start," Elena whispered. "This network, just a shadow. The real rot is here." Maya's pulse thundered. Every fiber in her legs screamed for rest, but rest was for people who never wore invisible scars. She loaded her sidearm, pocketed the drive, and found Darrow. Alone at the perimeter fence, staring out at the desert like it owed him something. He turned at her approach, lips twisting. "You always were your father's daughter. Thought you'd bury the past, not dig it up." She raised her weapon. "The past is gone. I'm here now." He lunged, hand flashing to his concealed holster. But Maya had lived her whole life in the heartbeat between threat and execution. One shot, clean. A purple mist against the floodlights. Drop a. If you've ever had to pull your own poison from the wound. Resolution and reflection. They buried Darrow in an unmarked trench by the perimeter. The official report would call it a failed rogue intercept, an unfortunate cost of a hero's final push. But Maya knew better. The real war was never just bullets and blacklists. It was the truth you carried when no one else would stand by you. She patched Briggs' side herself, hands steady. Elena's eyes shone with something like awe as she handed Maya the fully decrypted file. Titan response would fall. And Maya Hart, once the ghost in the back row, would be its final witness. They laughed at her, Purple Heart, until she proved it was never about the metal. It was about the woman who wore it, bruised, scarred, unbroken. She stepped into the dawn, drive tight in her fist, the desert wind whispering over her shoulder. "Stay calm. Heart strong." 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Wind roared through the open hatch of a battered supply Humvee as Maya leaned out, eyes narrowed at the convoy of armored trucks trailing them across the cracked desert highway. Drop A. If you've ever felt hunted even when you knew you were. Right. Backstory thread. 2 nights ago, she'd burned Darrow's name off every server she could reach. Elena's trembling fingers had uploaded the last leak to a hidden node. Briggs, half-conscious but alive, mumbled through fevered dreams. About the men they'd left behind. Her father's old sniper patch rode in her chest pocket, now creased. Faded, but warm against her skin. Her mother's ghost lingered in her hands each time she cleaned Briggs' wounds. "Compassion is your anchor," her mother whispered when Maya doubted her own rage. But in the rear-view mirror now, headlights danced like hungry eyes. No one left to trust. No home base to run to. Inciting incident. A sniper round struck the Humvee's side mirror, shattering it into shards that glittered across Maya's sleeve. Elena screamed in the passenger seat. Briggs cursed from the back, his arm lashed to a splint. "Ambush!" Elena cried. Maya fought the wheel, voice steel flat. "Not an ambush, a cleanup. They want the drive." Briggs pushed himself upright, pain carving lines through his face. "You got it hidden?" She tapped the small data capsule soldered inside. The Humvee's fuse panel, one more trick her father had taught her. Always hide the truth in plain sight. Stay down. She snapped. Hold tight. Crisis and reveal. They roared off the highway onto a sand-swept trail, tires fishtailing through dune drifts. 2 pursuit trucks kept pace. Gunners braced on the beds, rifles barking fire into the night. Maya spun the wheel, brake slid. Behind a rocky bluff. She shoved the gear shift into park, climbed out, and pulled her father's battered rifle free from its sling on the roof rack. She took position on the bluff's crest, wind scraping sand across her cheek, breath slow, heart steady. Her brace hummed as it locked her wounded leg in place. Below, the first pursuit truck lurched around the bend. Gunners yelled, pointing at her silhouette in the starlight. She whispered, "One shot. One chance." The first round split the lead driver's skull. The truck veered, crashing into the second, metal shrieking. She fired again, bolt sliding, smooth dropping. The rear gunner as he scrambled for cover. Briggs shouted from below, "Another convoy, East Ridge." She saw it, more headlights weaving between boulders. Enemy backup. Not mercs this time, these were Titan Response's own loyalists. Faces hidden behind company masks. The company she'd bled for. Drop a, "If you've ever stood alone against the machine that made you." She limped down, reloaded on the run. Briggs tossed her a fresh mag with a grim grin. "Purple Heart, huh?" Maya chambered the round. "Damn right." They set their final trap in the ravine, a narrow choke point surrounded by fractured rock. She laced trip mines across the boulders, each one wired with the last of her father's old field charges. Elena crouched beside her, whispering prayers. Will it be enough? Maya pressed the last detonator into her palm. It has to be. The first armored truck hit the mine's fireball, cracking the night. Screams echoed across the ravine walls. The second truck braked too late, wheels locking as shrapnel tore into the chassis. Maya and Briggs opened fire from the rocks, their rounds cutting through confused shadows. Gunfire shredded the darkness. Sparks danced across her scope. Her brace sparked, failing, but her will didn't. When the last loyalist fell, silence wrapped the ravine in uneasy peace, resolution, and reflection. They buried the data capsule under a cairn of Stone's coordinates, uploaded to every free press node Elena could access. It would survive them if they didn't make it back. Briggs leaned heavy on her shoulder. Where do we run now? Maya turned her face to the desert wind. We don't run. She looked at her father's insignia, traced its edges, and tucked it back into her pocket. Legacy means nothing unless you live it out loud. They started the battered Humvee, again engine coughing but alive. Ahead, the desert lay endless and dark. Behind them, the fires of betrayal still burned. But so did the proof they carried. The world would know. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Wind keened through the broken windshield as Maya pressed her hand against the dashboard, eyes locked on the ragged horizon where the desert turned to mountains. Drop. If you've ever driven toward something you couldn't see but knew you had to face. Backstory thread. Briggs dozed against the window beside her, his breath shallow but steady. Elena slumped in the back, arms wrapped tight around a battered laptop, its cracked screen flickering with the ghost of every file they'd bled to retrieve. Maya's own pulse thudded with the memory of that first shot fired with her father. At her shoulder, that long-ago desert ridge where she'd learned how to count seconds, to trust the wind, to wait for the moment only she could see. But no rifle shot could stop the truth buried under miles of dust and betrayal. It would break the world open or bury her beneath it. Inciting incident. The Humvee sputtered to a halt at dawn on the edge of a dry riverbed. Fuel gone. Tires shredded from the last ambush. Briggs stirred, saw the dead gauge, and grunted a laugh. That turned into a cough. Guess the ghost walked now, huh? Maya smirked. Not the first time. They packed what they could carry. The laptop, 2 sidearms, a battered set phone that only worked when it felt like it. Maya checked her brace, still sparking at the hinge but locked tight enough to hold her weight. They hiked toward the mountains, boots sinking into pale sand that reflected the rising sun like broken glass. Hours blurred into heat and exhaustion. Elena stumbled often, her eyes red from the grit. Briggs leaned heavier on Maya's shoulder, his bandages seeping through his shirt. Drop a Heath ever pushed forward when every step said turn back. By dusk, the distant lights of an abandoned mining outpost flickered into view. Rusted derricks, a water tower leaning like a drunk sentinel. The place stank of oil and wind-borne dust. Maya raised her rifle as they approached a gutted shack. She found tracks in the sand, boot prints too fresh to be ghosts. "Stay behind me," she said. Inside the shack, oil drums and rusted crates formed a makeshift barricade. A single figure sat on an upturned crate, rifle across his knees, tattoos spiraling down his forearms. His eyes met hers, hollow but sharp. "Specialist Hart," he rasped. "Took you long enough." Briggs stiffened. "Who the hell?" The man tilted his head. "Name's Jace. Used to be Titan Response's dog catcher. Now I'm the mutt they couldn't leash." Maya lowered her rifle but didn't relax. "Why are you here?" Jace laughed, a sound like gravel. "Same reason you are. Darrow's gone, but the rot's still deep. They'll come for you. You think that file you buried will do the job alone? Truth needs a stage." Crisis and reveal. A floodlight snapped on outside the shack, harsh white glare slicing through the cracks. Engines growled in the distance. Shadows moved among the derricks. "They found us," Elena hissed, clutching the laptop. Maya grabbed her father's insignia from her chest pocket, feeling the worn edges dig into her palm. "Not tonight." Jace kicked over an oil drum, rolling it toward the shack's window. "Explosive rig inside. You want the stage? Light the match." She looked at Briggs, who managed a bloody grin. "No one laughs tonight, Maya." She jammed the rifle barrel through the shattered window, took aim at the drum's cap, and fired. Flame blossomed outward, engulfing the front ranks of the encroaching shadows. Screams and gunfire erupted. The ground trembled as oil lines caught. Fire snaking through the derricks. Maya, Briggs, Elena, and Jace slipped out the back, weaving through dark alleys of rusted pipes. Every heartbeat thundered like the rifle bolt slamming home. They reached the old water tower. Maya clambered up the ladder, first, gritting her teeth as her brace sparked with each rung. From the top, she could see the whole outpost, a maze of fire and smoke. She raised her rifle, sighted the backup convoy barreling in from the west. The shot cracked through the wind, splitting a truck's axle. Sparks lit the night again, resolution and reflection. By dawn, they were ghosts once more, vanishing into the maze of canyons behind the outpost. The laptop held safe in Elena's pack, the truth waiting for the world to claim it. Jace fell in step beside Maya as the sun edged over the horizon. "They'll hunt you to the ends of the earth now." Maya shrugged, feeling her mother's voice curl like a heartbeat around her ribs. "Stay calm. Heart strong." She pressed her father's insignia to her lips, tasted sweat and grit and hope. "They can hunt all they want," she murmured. "The story's already written." She didn't hear the wind's laughter behind her. But if she had, she'd have recognized it as her own. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The wind howled like a living thing through the narrow canyon as Maya pressed her back to the sandstone wall, rifle balanced across her knees, eyes scanning the moonlit pass below. Drapa, if you've ever had to hold your ground when the world closed in. Backstory thread. Behind her, Briggs lay propped against an ancient boulder, a shallow gash taped across his ribs. Elena tapped furiously at the battered laptop, its cracked screen the only light between them and oblivion. Jace crouched by the canyon entrance, a ghost among shadows. He'd once been Titan's hammer. Now, with every word He reminded Maya how easily the wolves could turn on the shepherds. Her father's old sniper patch pressed against her heartbeat, a vow to see the lie through, no matter what it cost. Inciting incident. Briggs' breathing grew ragged as the night deepened. Maya leaned close, pressing 2 fingers to his wrist. Stay awake. You promised to see the world burn with me. Briggs managed a weak grin. Never pegged you for the dramatic type, Purple Heart. The name stung, once a joke, now a legend written in her own blood. Below, headlights bobbed through the canyon mouth. Convoy. More Titan loyalists. More shadows wearing the face of home. Jace tapped her shoulder. We can't hold this pass. Too many. Elena looked up, eyes wild behind smudged glasses. The broadcast is almost ready. One push to the satellite and every dirty secret goes live. But if they jam the signal, Maya's mind raced. Compassion is your anchor. Precision is your spear. Drop a if you've ever felt the moment click into place. Crisis and reveal. She slipped down the sandstone ledge, boots scraping dust into the dark. Her brace sparked with every step, metal grating against bone. She found the old mining shaft half buried beneath a tarp of thorny brush. Inside, a tangle of abandoned dynamite, corroded detonators. The ghosts of men who dug too deep for profit and died with dust in their lungs. Maya rigged the charges by touch. Her father's voice whispered the rhythm. One wire. One fuse. One breath between hope and ruin. Outside, engines rumbled closer. Titan's dogs spread across the ridgeline. Radios crackling orders to corner the canyon. Maya emerged into the moonlight, dusted stone from her sleeves, and found Briggs' eyes. When I say run, run. Elena, you hit send the second I pull. Them in. Jace barked a laugh. You're insane. Maya just smiled. Not insane. Tired of being a ghost. She stood atop the ledge, rifle raised high. A single figure in the moon's cold glow. A loyalist's bullhorn cracked the night. Maya Heart. Surrender and you live. She chambered her round. You first. She fired once up, over there. Heads. The canyon echoed like thunder. The loyalists surged forward, blind to the web she'd laced around their boots. A spark. A heartbeat. The shaft erupted behind them, fire churning through rockin' bodies. The canyon floor heaved, swallowing half the convoy in a cyclone of dust and flame. Briggs hauled Elena upright. Now! They sprinted for the ridgeline, Jace covering their backs. Bullets ricocheted from the stone as loyalists fired blind through. The smoked out Maya stayed behind, picking her shots, each round dropping a silhouette that once wore her insignia. Resolution and reflection. By dawn, the survivors limped into the high foothills. Elena, teeth chattering, showed Maya the flickering laptop screen. Signals out. The world has the files now. Every name. Every bribe. Every betrayal. Briggs collapsed beside a charred stump, pain and relief carved into a smile. They'll chase you to the ends of the earth for this. Maya sank to her knees, bracing her rifle over her thighs. She could feel the old scar on her wrist pulse, a reminder that this fight didn't start here, didn't end here. Jace crouched beside her, eyes glinting. So what now, Purple Heart? She looked at him, then at the rising sun spilling gold across the blood-streaked canyon. Her father's voice echoed clear and true. Don't just survive. Endure. Maya wiped grit from her brow, eyes hard. Now we make them regret they ever laughed. The desert wind carried her mother's mantra into the light. Stay calm. Heart. Strong. She rose, battered brace squealing, and led them into the sun. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Moonlight sliced through the broken clouds as Maya lay on her belly atop a shale outcrop. I pressed to her battered scope, breath ghosting into the cold mountain wind. Drop a if you've ever held your ground with nothing left to lose. Backstory thread. Below, in the valley's bruised darkness, the remnants of Titan strike teams fanned out like ants in panic. They hadn't expected her to survive the canyon. They hadn't expected the truth to escape. Briggs dozed nearby, half buried in a makeshift bivouac, one hand resting on the butt of his sidearm. Elena hunched over the laptop, tapping out the last encrypted message to every corner of the free web. Jace knelt at the tree line, eyes hunting for motion among the pines. Her father's old patch dug into her collarbone, as if to say, legacy means nothing until you fight to keep it. Inciting incident. Crackling static erupted in her earpiece Titan frequencies, frantic, disjointed. Contain the leak. Target is priority 1, shoot on sight. Maya adjusted her position, thigh screaming where the brace bit into old scar tissue. Her finger ghosted the trigger guard. This ridge, these rocks, this single sliver of sky, it was all that stood between them and an execution. Briggs woke, coughing. They'll come at dawn. She nodded, scanning for muzzle flashes. Good. We finish it at dawn. Elena's eyes widened over the laptop's faint glow. Maya, this data dump, it's everywhere. Major outlets. Leaks, even the dark net. They can't stop it now. A slow grin pulled at the corner of Maya's mouth. Then they'll have to kill me to close the last chapter. Droppa, if you've ever felt alive in the eye of the storm, crisis and reveal, hours bled away. A wolf pack's howl carried through the trees, nature's reminder that the mountain obeyed no flag. Maya watched the strike team line creep closer, silhouettes hunched behind trees, shadows darting from boulder to boulder. Jace whispered beside her. 5, maybe 6. Full kit, they think we're wounded prey. Maya slid a fresh mag into her rifle. They're half right. Briggs rose unsteadily, hand pressed to his ribs. I'll flank the east gap, draw a few away. She caught his wrist, eyes flaring. No heroes tonight. We all live or none of this matters. But he squeezed her hand in that quiet way that said he'd already made peace with the cost. The first shot split the trees hers. A flash of sparks where it bit through a team leader's chest rig. The line fractured, confusion rippling like panic in water. JACE ghosted forward. 2 silenced shots spitting through the dawn. Shadows fell. Elena huddled behind the pack, the laptop clutched to her chest as if it were a child she couldn't let die. A burst of gunfire chewed into the shale near Maya's elbow. She shifted position, ignoring the blood from her leg. The brace locked, caught, and held her steady. Her father's whisper, shoot the intention, not the man. She sighted an operator raising a grenade launcher, took the shot. The round struck the man's wrist, spinning him backward into a pine trunk. Grenade dropped, a dull thud, then an echoing crack as the pine exploded in splinters. Briggs roared, unleashing the last rounds of his clip into a flanking pair. His breath-rattled lungs fighting for each inch of dawn. They closed the line inch by inch. Each shot a memory, each heartbeat a promise, resolution and reflection. When the sun finally crowned the ridge, the clearing was a graveyard. Titan strike teams scattered like ash on snow. Jace sat beside a stump, cleaning blood from his knife. Elena, tears streaking soot across her face, typed the final kill code into the laptop before it died with a whimpering spark. Briggs leaned into Maya's shoulder, his grin delirious proud. They didn't see you coming, not once. Maya traced the edge of her father's patch against her collarbone, eyes fixed on the rising light. Her mother's words fluttered back like of distant chopper blades. Stay calm. Heart strong. She stood on legs that trembled but did not fall. It's done. The world knows. Now they'll see me. Jace smirked at the bodies below. What about Titan, the next wave? Maya leveled her gaze across the endless pines, the last shadows slinking back into the trees. They'll come. They always do. But this time they'll remember the ghost who stood her ground. The purple heart on her vest gleamed in the new sun. No longer a medal to mock, but a promise etched in steel and scars. She exhaled, feeling. Her parents with her, every shot, every heartbeat, every truth she dragged into the light. She was no shadow now. She was the storm. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Snow drifted in the dying pines as Maya knelt by a frozen creek, her rifle laid across her lap, breath clouding like ghosts that would never leave her. Drop a, if you've ever faced your demons where no one could see. Backstory thread. Briggs slept under a lean-to of broken branches, his bandages checked and changed by trembling hands. Elena sat cross-legged by the embers of a flickering fire, the dead laptop beside her, its mission complete, but its silence heavy. Jace scouted the tree line, moving like a wolf born from betrayal. Maya stayed by the creek. Water whispered past. Her boots, reminding her of desert winds and battlefield sutures, her mother's gentle hush. Stay calm. Heart strong, her father's sniper patch rested over her pulse, a promise, an oath, a burden. Inciting incident. The last Titan pursuit drone skimmed overhead at dawn, its searchlight crawling over the snow-choked clearing. Maya watched its shape flicker through bare branches, its distant hum a lullaby for the hunted. They were ghosts now, but even ghosts left tracks. Briggs coughed awake. They'll drop a team here. We can't run anymore. Elena's voice was thin but steel cord. We don't run. We finish it. Maya stood, slinging the rifle over her shoulder, brace whining under her weight. They laughed at my Purple Heart. Let's show them how real it gets. Drop a, if you've ever felt the fight live in your blood. Crisis and reveal. They dug shallow foxholes under a sky bruised with dawn. Snow muffled footsteps but could not hide breath or heat. Jace returned with word of the drop zone. A quartet of operatives, masked, armored, eyes hidden behind black visors. One carried Maya's old field insignia on his vest, a final insult. She remembered her father's words. Precision is the answer to arrogance. She chambered around, sighted her scope. The operatives spread out, moving like shadows that forgot the sun rises. The first shot cracked the creek silence. A visor spider-webbed with red mist. The second shot dropped a breach specialist mid-sprint, ice crusting his blood where it splattered snow. Jace dragged Briggs to cover when suppressive fire chewed bark into splinters. Elena clutched a flare there. Final beacon if they failed. Maya felt her brace snap at the knee hinge, metal biting skin. She fought through the pain, crawling to a new angle. She felt the ghosts of her parents kneel beside her, one steadying her shoulder, the other whispering calm into her ear. One by one, she silenced them all. Resolution and reflection. When the last echo faded, Maya rose on her battered leg. Blood darkened her pants to her boot. She limped to the bodies, searching them for the transmitter that would call the next wave. Briggs leaned against Jace, eyes bright with wonder. That it? No more dogs in the dark? Maya pocketed the transmitter, eyes narrowed at the horizon. They'll send more, but now they know I'll be waiting. Elena stepped forward, tears freezing on her lashes. The world knows. The files are out. Titan's broken. But what about you? Maya knelt by the creek again, washing her father's patch in the icy water, rinsing the blood but not the truth. She held it to her chest, feeling her heartbeat steady under her palm. My medal was never the point, she whispered. The fight is the point. Briggs barked a ragged laugh. Damn right, Purple Heart. The wind rose, carrying her mother's voice one last time. Stay calm. Heartstrong. Maya shouldered her rifle, eyes sweeping the silent trees. The fight would never end, but she would never stand small again. She turned to her ragged, loyal few. Come on, the storm's ours now. She took the first step through the snow, her Purple Heart gleaming in the first light of morning, no longer mocked, but earned 1,000 times over. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.